So we have something very important to discuss this morning, and it's starting off with the Baal Shem Tov on Tefillah, and we want to discuss a important thing about the davening, which has to do with the current day situation, which will be very, very practical and applicable for all of us. We're starting off with the Kapitel Kuf Tes in Tehillim. In that particular Mizmor in Tehillim talks about Son Im of David Melech, the people who are his enemies, the people who were antagonistic towards him. Now, I don't know if he means only Goyim. It could mean that he means Jews also. But generally speaking, David Melech is trying to be very compassionate and considerate and try to do the best that one can do in Hashem's eyes and one could do as a Jew. But in this particular capital of Tehillim, he is extremely, extremely firm and very, very negative in what he writes about these sonim. First of all, he starts off by saying that they're all lying about him and they're spreading words of hatred and they're making a war against him for nothing. So it probably does mean some of the Jews who were against David Melech, many who caused him trouble. And he loved them, and he says in Pasuk Dalet Tacha, if you want to look at the capital of Tehillim, if you have it with you, you can open it up to Kuf Tes in Tehillim. Kuf Tes in Tehillim, it might be helpful to have the Sefer in front of you. In any case, he says in Pasuk Dalet Tachas Ahavasi, in place of my love for them, Yistanuni. They hate me, I love them, and they hate me. Vani Sfila. And Hindu would say that I turn myself totally into a object of tefillah. You hear that? Vani Tefillah. He doesn't say that I am davening. He says I become prayer. In other words, he gets so inundated and involved in the davening that he becomes one with prayer. He does, I need tefillah. I am prayer. He loses himself totally into the davening. And they and they perpetrate all kinds of evil instead of good. And they have hatred for me in place of my love for them. So, what does he say about them now? This is the day he's describing what they've done to him, what they're doing to him. So he's asking Hashem, Hafkedala Rasha, Satan Yamar Yamino. Send these people, Rishayim and a Satan on his right hand to take care of them. Bishopto Yetze Rasha, if he has to go through a mishpat, he should come out the loser, or come out of Russia. Utfilaso Tiechat Lachata. And any tefillah that he has, it should be an avera. It should be a chesaro. You Yamav Ma'atin, he's wishing that they have a short term to live. Yamav Ma'atin, he's cursing them. And and whatever he's supposed to be doing in life, somebody else should substitute, take it over from him. You Banav Yisomim v'yishto almana. This is what he's wishing. He's wishing these people should die, and their children should be Yisomim, and his wife an almana. Now, this is pretty harsh. He's not at all being kind of these people who are giving him all this sorrows in life. Now, we can certainly say this about our enemies today who have perpetrated terrible, terrible things and taken from us very, very tremendous amount of beautiful, beautiful neshama, karbanos. So we could certainly wish all of these evil things upon them also. And That's just on the simple level of the literal translation of the words. But the Baal Shem Tov has another take on this altogether. A totally more spiritual Hasidic take on this. And he says everybody has a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. You have various levels in your soul. And each one is considered to be sort of like the wife of that one above. The nefesh is the wife to the ruach, and the ruach is the wife to the neshama. Now, based on that, when we talk about here, ishto should be an almana. So what would that mean? That means that the nefesh, ruach, and neshama should be disconnected. They're all supposed to be aiding each other and accomplishing things together. Nefesh, ruach, and neshama as a whole provide the person who has these chalakim in his neshama, provide him with the proper energies that he needs, with the proper shefa, all the currencies that the currents that have to come down in the shemayim, all the bracha, it comes through the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. But when you say that the isha should be an almana, that means you want that there should be no connection with the level above. The nefesh should not be attached to the ruach, and the ruach should not be attached to the neshama. And therefore, the flow between them will only be maximum a tipa, only droplets. There will not be an open canal which brings down ben Hashemayim all of the energies that Hashem is sending down. Hashem, David Melech, is wishing that all of these connections are the slightest and the smallest, if at all. He wants them not to be. He wants the connections not to be present. The Isha should be an almana, as if she has no husband. That this is all coming because of a person's lack of his davening. And we have to understand, we're talking about, this is our topic in the Baal Shem Tov, the discourse that we're talking about the Baal Shem Tov on Tefillah. And he put a lot of emphasis on Tefillah. Now you have to understand that Tefillah is one of the most powerful, I would say, powerful tools that we have. One of the things that Tefillah accomplishes is what we call is hamtokas hadin. Right now in the world, there is a large representation of the midah of din. This is going on in Russia and Ukraine. There's an ongoing war there. There's constant battles and killings there all the time. There are protests all over the world. There are shootings all over the world. And unfortunately, we just experienced a nice portion of the midah of din. So what is the way to deal with this? Well, in Hasidus and Kabbalah, the way we deal with dinim are to be mamtik the din. We sweeten the din. And we try to change the din altogether into chesed and rachamim. But if we can't do that, we try to at least soften the din. That's called hamtakas hadinim, sweetening the din. You can't sweeten it totally, but if you don't sweeten it totally, at least sweeten it in some way, partially, mostly. And when you do that, you are accomplishing a great taiva for Am Yisrael, for yourself, and for the world. We try to sweeten the din. Now, the period of din started on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is called Yom Hadid. Yom Hadid, as we know. And we have to understand also that din comes also with great foresight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He gave us the Chodesh of Elul before that to set the stage, so that when the din comes, it comes already in a preparation of a full month of Rachamim. Chodesh Elul is the Chodesh HaRachamim. We say every single day, starting in Chodesh Elul, the Davar Hashem Ori V'Yishi. Hashem is my light, Hashem is my salvation. And we say in that capital of Tillim, which we say all the way through Shmini Atzeres, we say that every single day twice. Ashkenazim say it Shachris and Meir, and the Hasidim and the Sephardim say it Shachris. I think the Hasidim say all Shachris and Mincha, but twice a day. What is the reason that we're saying it twice a day? Well, if you look at the words there in that capital of Tillim, the Chav Zayin, Davar Hashem Ori V'Yishi, you'll see that the words of the Tillim are, of course, directed against our enemies. They should have a downfall. Right? When they come up against us to do us harm, David Melech is asking they should have a kishalom, they should have a failure and fall. And the other thing that he's wishing them also, so it's a very important tefillah to say. I would say we should say it today also. Most of the shuls that I know of, all the shuls that I know of, are always saying Tillim after davening because of the matzav that we're in. I don't know why they're passing up something which we are so familiar with every single year. Until the Davar Hashem Ori. Why did they just say Shir Hamalos, Nimamakim or Shir Lamalos Esra Einai? They should say this one. And they also should say Yoshe B'Seisei Elyo, which is the capital against all negative forces. That's what we say that admire every single night. On Motzei Shabbos, by the way. On Motzei Shabbos, because after having a day of menucha, of rest, Motzei Shabbos, the doors of Gehenna are opened up again, the fires start, and we want to keep away, at the very onset of the week, we want to keep away all the kitrugim, all of the prosecutions against us. So we say Yoshev B'Seisei Elyo, and that is a Tillim, which is so powerful that it quiets the midah of din. It doesn't let it become so prominent and do us harm. That's why we say it in the Kriya Shema Shel Hamita. When we go to sleep at night and the Kedusha side of us is asleep and at rest, all of the Tumah can set in. We want to have a protection against the forces of Tumah that could take over a person and infect him in his dreams or whatever it is. Therefore, we say the Yoshe B'Seisei Elyon, we say Shema Yisrael, and so on. All of these things are made to protect us. So, this is something, the Yoshe B'Seisei Elyon, plus the Davar Hashem Ori, which is said for 40 days, 30 days of Elul, and another 10 days, more than 10 days. It said from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur is 10 days, and then after Yom Kippur it still said again for another 10 until the end of Sukkot. So there's 5 days, another 12 days. So it said for most of the month. So we know that Chazal have instituted this. I don't know why we don't use this capital of Tillim at this time now. We're in an Eis Tzara. This is the time to initiate saying that the Davar Hashem Ori, and I myself say it twice a day, even though the Tzibur doesn't say it. One of the other reasons why we should say that one is because the Davar Hashem Ori has the Shem Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei in it 13 times. And by saying that, Shem Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei 13 times, we arouse the Yud Gimel Midas of Rachamim, which we need so desperately right now. So therefore, it's very important to say that the Davar Hashem Ori V'Yishi, I should think we should say it twice a day with the other Tillim that we're saying too. But all the Tillim is good. But the whole point of all of this here, as I'm getting back to the original phrase, is Hamtakas Hadin, or Mitimamtik Ledin. The world is in a period of din right now, all over. There's plenty of good things going on in the world also, but the amount of evil that's going in the world is much too prominent. We need a certain amount of din in the world. That is one of the ingredients, the makeup of the world, that the world has chesed and din. But the question is the ratio, din, and how outstanding should it be? So we try to make it only be in the background. It's got to be there. That's the way Hashem created the world. But it doesn't have to be in the forefront like it is right now. It's going on all over the world, even in countries that are not at mamish at war, but there are always protests going on, and there's a lot of crime of all kinds that are going on, and we need a lot of sweetening of the din. So therefore, it's very important to say the Daven Hashem Ori twice a day, and I would say it's good to say Tehillim every single day for a few minutes a day at least, having in mind that we're saying Tehillim to sweeten the matzav of din for Am Yisrael especially, and even in the rest of the world. You think Hashem is happy and wants the world to go on as it's going on now, with all of the destruction going on in the world, all the havoc, the tragedies and the screaming and all the nervousness, and Hashem wants a world of chesed. That's what David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Ki amarti odom chesed yiboneh. This is the kind of world that Hashem had in mind, a world of chesed where people are living in harmony with each other, helping each other, not everyone looking out for his own good. So saying Tehillim, with having that in mind, will have a very, very important effect. Okay, now, as long as we're on it, I think it's very, very important to hear what I'm going to say right now. We'll have to take a little bit of a tangent off the topic and go to the topic at hand right now that we're dealing with. That is the matzav of Eretz Yisrael right now for Am Yisrael. It all has to do with Hamtakas Hadin. How do we sweeten the dinim for Am Yisrael? Well, there are a number of things that we can do. First of all, if anyone does not say the Ketores before Shachris in Mincha, that's something to take on. Before we brought the Korban Tamid in the morning, the Ketores was brought in the Beis HaMikdash. Therefore, we have it in the Siddur also, say the Pitam HaKetores before davening, and to say it after davening in the middle of Ein Kelokenu, with Ein Kelokenu. And then to say it again before Mincha. The Ketores has a wonderful, wonderful effect of Hamtakas Hadin and sweetening and improving the matzah. It's very, very important to say that if one hasn't done it, to do it every single day. Come to shul a few minutes earlier and say the Pitam HaKetores. So you're saying it actually 3 times a day, before Shachris and after Shachris, doing Ein Kelokenu, and then again before Mincha. So this is an important way to be mamtik the din. Then as far as Tehillim, we mentioned that also. And then there's a third thing, which is very, very sensitive, is very, very important. And that is the following. The topic is Simcha. Is it proper to be b'simcha at a time like this? Now, there are people who have simchas which are normally celebrated, like a chasana, like a bris, like a bar mitzvah. And I know that many have canceled some of the parts of the simcha because of the matzah that we're in, for security reasons, not to have the Jews coming from all over and concentrating a large amount of people in one place, against the rules of the Pikud HaOref. They are claiming no more than 50 people should be at any one gathering. So obviously, if you're going to have a large affair with a large dinner, a mitzvah, whatever it is, even a bris or a chasana, you're going to have more than 50 people. And many people have canceled them, and they make very, 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 I would say, limited celebrations with small amounts. Same thing applies to a kiddush. It should be a small affair and not something we invite, all kinds of people to come from afar and all over to come. It's better if things are in a small framework. So the point is here that these simchas are nevertheless important. So aside from being happy for the actual occasion itself, for the bris, for the bar mitzvah, for the chassid, it's very important to use the simcha to be mamtik the din. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. There was a very chashuv Hasidic Rebbe called the Ribnitzer Rebbe. Ribnitz. I think Ribnitz or Ribnitz, I'm not sure. Ribnitz. He was in the Shoah, and I don't know if he escaped or whatever it was. He came to Eretz Yisrael afterwards. He stayed here for a while, then he went back to New York and he settled in Muncie, New York. And his grave site is there in a small cemetery outside Muncie. People used to come to him. He was a Baal Mofetz. He was one of these people who had supernatural powers. A bracha of his meant something. Advice that he gave was always very important. And they came to him when he was alive, and they said to him once, there's a Jew who's Eis Tzara. He's really suffering, he's undergoing difficult times. So he sat down and started to laugh. Like a Hasidic, warm Hasidic Rebbe who laughs when somebody else has tzaras. So he asked the Rebbe, why is the Rebbe laughing? So he says, I'm not just laughing, I'm laughing to be mamtik the din. You hear that, Rabbi side? I'm laughing to be mamtik the din. The simcha that I am trying with all my might, I know I feel the tsar for this person, and I want him to come out of the tsar. I want his tsar to be lessened. So I'm trying to arouse an emotion of sweetness, of simcha, to counteract the tzara that he's in. That's called hamtakas hadin. The same thing applies to us also. We have to try, if we have a simcha to attend, to tell the Baal Simcha that let's use this occasion to have the kavanah to mamtik the dinim that Klal Yisrael finds themselves in right now. There are people who are getting married. We don't push off a marriage because of things that are happening at Klal Yisrael, unless it's mamish and pikuach nefesh. So we have a smaller crowd at the chasna. We don't push it off, and certainly we don't push off a bris that has to be on the Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, or a pidyon haben also on the 31st day. So we have these simchas that we have. We should use the simcha to counteract the midah of din, which is right now in the air. And we can be the simcha during the day also without having a special occasion, with the kavanah that when we're laughing, we're using the laughing or smiling, we're using it for davka to din, not just to be involved in something, a happy occasion, for your own personal enjoyment. That, I would say, would be a cruelty. It's a cruelty and being insensitive to our brothers and sisters who are down south, who are sitting, many of them sitting in Avelis because they found out that their people, their family were nifted down there. But I want to tell you one thing also, how important this is. They made videos of soldiers who are down south, standing around in a circle and dancing. This was done davka because they have to have the proper mindset and the proper inner vigor to go out there and do the job properly. And if a soldier is walking around with sadness, he is a target for the midas adin chalila vakas. He has to be besimcha, and if he's besimcha, it brings down upon him hamtakas adin, and he can go in there and do what he has to do to save Klal Yisrael and to clean out all of the rishus that's down. So it's very important. These soldiers themselves are trying to arouse simcha within them. So certainly we can help by being the simcha also. But we have to understand, when it comes to our tefillas, then we're not the simcha so much. Then we have to cry for all the tzareth that the Klal Yisrael is going for. But when we're not actually davening or saying tehillim for them, we should try to be besimcha, but not as in ignoring them. On the contrary, try to be besimcha bedavka, to direct the simcha to help them. The simcha that we arouse creates an atmosphere, creates reactions in the world, in the Olam Yisrael. Where is the midah of din that we're so worried about? Where is it? It really originates in Shemayim. That's where it really is. And it just comes down, it's manifested down here. What we have to do is we have to direct our simcha to make a hamtakas hadin in Shemayim at the source. So I would have to be careful when you do it. Make sure you don't do it in front of people who won't understand what you're doing. Do it maybe with a group of people who all understand the idea. And then you can be besimcha and you can dance, but you have to have the kavanah. We're doing it only to help our brothers, anyone who is helping the effort down south or up north against the Hezbollah, Yamach Shemam, all to create simcha to be mamtik the din. Hamtakas Adin is one of the major themes that exist in Hasidus and in Kabbalah. We should know another thing. We have a minhag to have hakafas on Simchas Torah. Now this minhag of hakafas on Simchas Torah is not brought down in the earliest Svarim. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. Hakafas on Simchas Torah. We do have hakafas on Hoshana Rabbah, which is brought down. That is brought down. We go around on Hoshana Rabbah 7 times, during Chol HaMoed 1 time, on Yontif 1 time. That is brought down in Halacha, in Shulchan Aruch and the early Svarim. But the ones on Simchas Torah come from the Arizal only. He was the one who instituted it, and it became accepted by all of Klal Yisrael. Svardim, Ashkenazim, everyone makes hakafas on Simchas Torah. Now you have to understand one thing. It's very important to understand the background. At the time that the Arizal lived in Tzfas, we, the Jewish people, did not have control of Eretz Yisrael. We were in Golus. It was a time of darkness. But they were allowing the Jews to live in their own Dalet Amos and practice Judaism. We were not in a time of Geula. There was plenty of tzaras going on at that time. Although the Jews in their communities were able to practice more or less, but there was plenty of tzaras. And in that time of tzaras, the Arizal, he was the one who instituted making these hakafas on Simchas Torah. To arouse the simcha, to bring the simcha out more, I would say, strongly to counteract the tzaras and the gullahs. During his time, when he was with his Talmidim in Tzfas, Yerizah had Ruach HaKodesh, and all of a sudden he was given an opening to come to Yerushalayim and to bring Mashiach. This is written in the Svar. He told his Talmidim, you're all invited to come with me to Yerushalayim, and we have an opportunity at this moment to go and do it. Go to Yerushalayim, and we can bring Mashiach right now. We have an opportunity. They didn't have hundreds of Talmidim. He had a small group of Talmidim. But they all were told we have to go to Yerushalayim now, and bring Mashiach. And we can do it now. There's an opening, a window's open. What was the response of some of his Talmidim, which we would say is a proper response? It's an amazing story. I don't understand it myself, but some of his Talmidim said, we have to go home to our wives to say goodbye. They think we're in yeshiva learning. We're in the kollel, we're learning. How can we just leave, go to Yerushalayim, and they won't know anything? How can we be so unconsiderate? Nerizal heard that, said, we lost the opportunity. We lost it. There was a small window open. We could have done it. And he also knew, the Arizal, that they had families, that they had wives. These were not children, Talmidim. These were men, adult men with families. They had big chachoshim and Talmidim. How do we understand that? I was wondering, why would Hashem hold that against them and make them lose that opportunity? Isn't that, don't we know derech eretz kadma Torah? How can you be so inconsiderate and just leave and not say a word to your family, to your wife, you're leaving, and she's going to be worrying and crying, what happened to my husband? How can you do that? Well, I was thinking into it further, and I would say they probably knew each other, the Talmidim, and the wives would go to the other wives of the Talmidim, and they would somehow arrive at the conclusion that since all the Talmidim went, there must be something very, very important for them to do and go, and all the wives are alone now. So then somehow Hashem would provide for them. That's one possibility. That's one possibility. Another possibility, which is a very important possibility, is the following. I'm going to give you an example. There was a very great posek who was called Rabbi Meir Rothenberg. He was one of the Rishonim. He lived in Europe. Rothenberg was one of the, I don't know, Germany, which state it belonged to, I don't remember. He was taken into captivity. And they knew they got a big fish to go in. And they said to the Jewish community, you want your rabbi back? Okay. We want millions and millions of whatever it was, the currency of the time, rubles, who knows? I don't know what the time was. An exorbitant amount of money. And he knew, Rabbi Meir Wittenberg, what was going on. They allowed visitors, but they wouldn't allow him out of the prison. So he told them, B'shum panim ve'ofen, do not consent to their demand. Do not consent to their demand. If you consent to their demand, it's going to be an example for Goyim all over the world to extract exorbitant amounts of money for captives. It will become a worldwide phenomena. The Goyim captive Jews, and they force the Jews to give it exorbitant amounts of money, and they're going to get wealthy. Then they'll release them. But it's a very good way. It's going to be to no end. Ain't over so. It'll be an example for other people to learn to copy, and therefore do not agree to their demands. What does that mean? That means to say he's going to have to rot in prison and maybe die there. But he's saying, I have to think of the klal more so than the prat. We must think in general terms. You have to have broad-minded. To be broad-minded, you cannot think only of the individual. We must think of the klal as opposed to the prat. The klal is klal Yisrael. The prat is a small amount of people. The Arizal also may have known that. And he was saying, even if it means a sacrifice, you have to leave your family. Come to Yerushalayim now. and we can all together bring Mashiach, bring the Geula. But it's going to be at the expense of all the families of these husbands, his Talmidim. They're going to be suffering, their wives are going to be crying, the children are going to be excited. They're not going to know where their fathers are, where their husbands are. It's a question of the prat as opposed to the klal. Wouldn't it be better at the end for the entire Klal Yisrael? Of course it would be better. In order to do that, we'd have to sacrifice the prat. We have to sacrifice these families of the Talmidim to suffer for the time being, assuming that that's what it would be. Maybe they would somehow work it out. They would manage somehow. But even if they wouldn't manage, they have to suffer. They wouldn't know where their husbands are. Nevertheless, the end result would be for all of Klal Yisrael, and that is a greater, I would say, consideration than considering only the prat. So that is very, very important. That therefore, when we're at a simcha, we have to minimize our enjoyment because of the klal. It's not proper to have a large simcha, and many people won't even understand what it means to take the simcha and direct it to the mamtik the din. They're just not into that kind of thinking. It's a Hasidish, Kabbalistic way of thinking. Most people aren't exposed to that. And they're going to only sit there and enjoy themselves, forget about Klal Yisrael, forget about the tzar of all the families that are sitting Shiva, or the families that are wondering about their people who are in captivity, are they alive, not alive, are they going to come home, not going to come home. They're going to just get involved in enjoying themselves. And therefore, it's very important to know who to say this to and when to say it. But the concept is very, very important when it comes to thinking of the klal. Sometimes the klal must be focused on, and we have to sacrifice the prat. It's a very, very important idea. Okay. Now, so it shouldn't be considered, by the way, cruel and insensitive to be b'simcha, on the condition that the simcha is being used to sweeten the din. Say it over and over again. When you have something that you enjoy, even in your daily life, right now, in your quiet own little house, your own dollar amas, to have something which is enjoyable to you, take that enjoyment and in your mind, even say it. I want the enjoyment that I have, that I'm experiencing right now. The good news that I heard, that's giving me simcha. The scenes that I'm watching right now that are enjoyable to me to see, or the information that I'm getting, which is making me happy. I want this to be a hamtakas hadin. I want it to sweeten the din that is now prevalent for Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. All over the world, wherever I use the simcha that you are privileged to enjoy to sweeten the din. And I'll tell you another reason that you have to do that. You have to realize that every Jew is interconnected. We're all interwound. We're all one big family. Am Yisrael is one Am, one nation, indivisible. We all have individual neshamos, and we all have different characters and different facial features and different fingerprints. We're all individual. But in Shoresh, we're all into one group. We're all one family. And sometimes when the family has to suffer, Hashem is willing to take representatives. doesn't have to be everyone. If there are representatives which are chosen or offered, they sometimes can be the redeemers of the tsar or the punishment that was supposed to be on the entire group. So we have to also think of this concept that those people who were so tortured and massacred down there, they are also our korbanos. They are our representatives. They received the brunt of the cruelty, and they redeemed us from doing that, from going through that. Isn't that an amazing idea? These are our brothers and our sisters. They suffered for us. We know this concept from throughout history. Sometimes Hashem takes certain special people to be the korban. It's an unfortunate and seemingly unfair practice. Why should one certain person suffer for somebody else? The answer is, this is Hashem's cheshbonos. We don't know. We don't know. But that's the way it works. It's a fact of life. Sometimes somebody is chosen instead of you. You could have been there yourself. It could have happened to you. For some reason or other, it was somebody else instead of you, so you have to be so considerate and grateful and concerned. Wow, that could have been me. Hashem took the korban. I remember many years back when Klal Yisrael here in Eretz Yisrael were going through a very difficult period here. There were a lot of bus bombing, suicide bombers on the buses. Many people were afraid to travel on buses because it doesn't happen every day, but it happened often enough, much more than any one time it happens, puts a scare into anybody. But there it was happening more than just once. It happened a few times. There was, I remember, Kav Shmone Esrei. People didn't want to ride on that line because it happened more than once on that Kav Shmone Esrei. An Arab suicide bomber would get on, blow himself up, and the entire bus with him. He was promised that he's going to have Gan Eden with all his, all of his prostitutes are going to be with him there. That's what they promised. They brainwashed them to think that. So they go out and they commit suicide. And they blow up the entire bus. And this was happening much too often. People were scared of going on buses. At that time, one of the Hasidic Rebbeim, one of the Admor of Gur, I think it was Simcha Bunim. He was first a Rosh Hashiva in Menachem. He was a Rosh Hashiva in Gur, and then the Rebbe was Nifter, and he was chosen to be the Rebbe. So he gave up his position as the Rosh Hashiva. Someone else took over as Rosh Hashiva, and he took over the position of a Rebbe. He was a very, very big Anav, a big tzaddik. He was loved by everyone. And when these bus suicide bombings were going on, he took it very, very much to heart. He was only the Rebbe for 3 years. Usually a Rebbe is a Rebbe until he's Nifter. He still was a young man, considering it. Maybe in his 60s, I don't know exactly how old he was. But he was many, many years to go. But he took this very much to heart. And he said he was giving Ramazan that he felt that in the Shamayim, they're going to take him as the korban to redeem Klal Yisrael from the suicide bombers on the buses. And that's exactly what happened. He was nifter. I remember he had a heart attack or whatever it was. And after he was nifter, the suicide bombing stopped. It was it was absolutely amazing. Once he was nifter, it stopped. They took a big fish, min hashamayim, a person who was a ish tziburi, a big tzaddik, a big talmid chacham, a leader of Am Yisrael. They took him as a korban. That was a pidyon for Am Yisrael. Well, I'm saying that this man hazeh, we have to be very, very kind of this concept. It's very, very possible that had not happened in the Darom, what happened, it could have been Chalila V'chas, a lot worse in the entire country. Because I heard that they had plans to actually go all the way to Yerushalayim. They didn't. This is things that they've been working on for months and months, planned out the whole thing. So we have to be, on one hand, very much bitzar that these people were taken as they were. But on the other hand, we have to bench Goimel in a sense. And we have to say, these were our karbonos, they were our pidyon. It's not over yet, but for the time being, we are in relative quiet and going around about life more or less in the same way that we always did. And there are many other families who are sitting in Shiva. And many who will probably shouldn't be, many, many more when they find out what happened, because all of the bodies haven't been recovered yet, probably. And we don't know what's going to be at the end, what's going to be with the captives. So we have to be extremely, extremely conscious of this and try as much as we can to be mamtik the din. And how are we mamtik the dinim? As I said, use our simcha and direct it for that purpose in our mind. And even we can even say it with our words. I am now devoting and dedicating my simcha to mamtik the din on Am Yisrael. Our davening should be for that purpose. Tefillah is mamtik the din. Tefillah. And another thing is mamtik the din, a very important one, learning Torah Lishma. Learning Torah Lishma. That means learning Torah not for any personal benefit, but just for the mitzvah, for Hashem's mitzvah to us. We're doing it only for Hashem. Learning Torah Lishma has so many wonderful benefits to it. If you're doing it Lishma, doing it only for Hashem, and you don't have any personal interest at all, not to gain knowledge, not for any reason, not because you enjoy it, not that enjoying and learning Torah is wrong. On the contrary, it's a great milah to learn Torah and enjoy it. But that should not be your intention. And there are people who learn Torah because it's for them intellectual exercise. They enjoy it. They enjoy all of the argumentation and all of the dissection of the ideas. Is an enjoyment for them. That's what they learn Torah. That's not learning Torah Lishma. Learning Torah Lishma means you're learning it only because Hashem told you to do it, and you're not interested in what's going to come out of it. You're doing it only to satisfy Hashem's mitzvah. That's all. That's learning Torah Lishma. So those things are very, very important to Imam Tikadid. And this has to be our occupation during these days. And not only these days, it's not going to be over from what we hear on the radio so fast. It's going to take time to go through all of Gaza, clean out all the dirt that's there, the human dirt that's there. I don't mean the ashes, I mean the enemy. Clean it out until they're wiped out totally. When you have decay, you don't want the decay to spread. It's not enough to clean out 99%. That 1% can fester and grow. Like any bacteria will multiply. If you don't clean it out and disinfect it completely, then you're looking for trouble. It's going to, again, fester and grow. So it's got to be cleaned out at the root. That takes time. So we have to remember what we just learned today for a long, long time. Let's hope that it won't be that long. Let's hope that we'll be able to clean it out as much as we can and be satisfied that it doesn't exist any longer. So this is supposed to be the way we live our lives in the next few months for sure. Let's hope that certainly by Adar, when Purim comes, when they wanted the Amalek, Lahashmid, La'arog, La'abed, exactly what Hamas wanted. They're probably descendants of Amalek. It's going to be V'nafoku. It's going to be from Yogon to Simcha, and to Bracha and Yeshua. And certainly the month after that, when Pesach comes, B'nisan Nigalu, B'nisan Atzidim Ligoel. That by that time, for sure, the Geula Shleima will come in the hair of Yameinu. That's it for today, Rabbi Sai. So I hope to see you next Sunday back at Chabad